got your fiber and you got your spinning wheel, now you're ready to start spinning. Hi and welcome to Sweet Pea Seeds Inspirations. My name is Sydney and I'm going to help you create your very first bobbin. But before we get to that point, we are going to need to talk about a few things. One being the S twist versus Z twist, but also we are going to learn how to do the long draw and the short draw throughout this video. Now I will be spinning on my electric spinning wheel. So if you are using a manual spinning wheel, you will need to do some research on the tension bands if you are using a single drive band, whether you have an Irish tension or a Scotch tension. If you are using a double drive band spinning wheel, then you will need to do some research on how to spin on that. Now, as far as drafting the fibers and the Z twist and the S twist, it's going to be all the same. Let's go ahead and jump right in and start learning the difference between the Z twist and the S twist. I'm going to move my camera around to my Nano so you can actually see what exactly is going on and how you can tell the difference between the two. So I want to switch my camera around real quick and I'll be right with you. So what do I mean when we're talking about Z twist versus S twist? Well, it means the direction of not only your flywheel, which is the arms right here, and usually there's clamps or hooks that are attached to them that leads your leader and your yarn through so it winds onto the bobbin, but also it's the direction of which your yarn is twisting, whether you're going in a clockwise motion, which is going to be the Z twist, or the opposite direction, which is counterclockwise, which is going to be an S twist. Now, I know specifically on these nanos, it does tell you and it gives you a switch of which direction you will be going, whether you're going to be doing a Z twist or an S twist. Now, if you have a manual spinning wheel, that's not so apparent. So what I do on my manual spinning wheel, I will take my orifice and kind of use it as like a clock. And if my flyer wheel is going to the right, that means I am going to be spinning a Z twist. Now, if it's going to the left, that means I am spinning a S twist. This is important to know because when you go to ply your singles together, you will need to go in the opposite direction of what your singles are. If you don't, then your singles aren't going to actually ply together, meaning that they're not going to twist together. They are just going to lay parallel, and then you are going to create a lot of overspin in your singles. So it is very important to know which direction that you are spinning your singles so that you can go in the opposite direction when you go to ply. But if you really want to get into it, it's also not important, but it's important if you want to plan out exactly what project you are going to be doing. Then it's also great to know if you are going to do a knitting project, then you want to ply in a S twist. So, meaning when you ply or when you do your singles, you will spin a Z twist and then ply in the opposite direction, which will be a S spun yarn. Now, if you're wanting to create a crochet project, you will go the opposite way and you will create a Z twist yarn, meaning you will spin your singles as a S twist and then you apply them in a Z twist ply. There is a book that's called The Spinner's Book of Yarn Designs by Sarah Anderson. I do highly recommend, if you can, get this book, especially as a beginner, because Sarah kind of teaches you the basic skills of learning how to spin. She kind of goes into depth with some things. She talks about the Z twist versus S twist, long versus short, some vocabulary that you will need to know as a spinner. But also, she teaches you how you can create your own 80 different types of yarns, which some of these are very, very interesting. So if you can get your hands on this book, do such. We are an inch closer learning how to spin. So like I stated earlier, it is highly recommended, if you haven't already, to get familiar with your spinning wheel and the components, because I will not be going over that in today's video. I will show you how to make a leader. So you do have a little bit of homework. If you need to come back to this video, feel free to do that, but please get familiar with your spinning wheel before you start learning how to spin. Now, to make a leader, you will need a long strand of yarn, and you will take the two ends and you are going to sit them parallel to each other, which then will create a loop at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this loop here and run it underneath the bobbin so that the loop is on the other side, and we're going to take the two strands of yarn that are on the opposite side of the bobbin and pull those through that loop. And then what I like to do is take a piece of tape and place this over top of my leader strand that's on my bobbin, so that my leader isn't moving and going in any direction while I'm spinning when first starting off. This can become problematic and will create your yarn to actually not uptake onto your bobbin. So I do like to put a piece of tape here to keep it in place. And then you are going to run that piece of strand of yarn through your clamps or your hooks, through your orifice ring here. And then I like to put a little knot like such. I just do a double knot at the end so that I can actually place some fiber through here and start drafting. Before spinning, you do want to pre-draft your fibers, meaning whatever fiber that you are using, whether it's in row-like form, roving, slivers, bat, whatever you're using, you do want to kind of pull them fibers apart so that they're not so compacted. If you try to spin compacted fiber, then you are going to be tugging quite a bit, and which can lead to even overspin. So now that you have pre-drafted your fibers and you are ready to spin, and when you do pre-draft, you don't want to draft them completely apart to where they're splitting or very, very thin to the point of splitting. So once you have pre-drafted your fiber, what I typically do is kind of get my fiber started a little bit and get a little section here and pull it away from the rest of the roving. So this is kind of the start of my drafting. What we're going to do is we're going to take the end of that leader that's got the knot here, and that little section that you may have pulled out like I typically do, we're just going to run that through the loop. And what I do is kind of fold it back so that it actually catches. So you're kind of creating a fold here, loop on a loop. Now I'm going to turn my spinning wheel on here in a minute. If you are using a manual spinning wheel, I definitely recommend kind of getting the placing of your foot in the treadle and knowing which direction you actually want to spin in before start spinning and drafting fibers. So I will be spinning a Z twist. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my nano on I'm going to try to get this kind of in frame. So like I stated, I am going to be spinning a Z twist. So my flyer wheel here will be going to the right. So clockwise motion. And I'm just going to kind of let that spin, this leader spin up a little bit. And then once I'm ready, I am going to start drafting my fibers. So what we're doing when we are drafting fiber, it's similar to pre-drafting, but we're adding the twist into it. So we're just kind of pulling a little bit at a time, and this is the short draw method. And we're just kind of letting the spinning wheel do its work and setting the twist here in our single. So we're just kind of pulling those fibers apart that is in our roving. And again, this is a short draft. Now, you do not want to get overspin in your single or even when plying. And how you can tell that is if you were to let go, a section will start to really crinkle up, kind of like in that manner. I do not have overspin in this strand of yarn, so that is very good. If you get a curly tail or curly Q like that, that is perfectly normal, and that means that you are doing a good job. But if you get overspin, and I'll create some real quick. So if you get overspin, there's a little section right there. It will be really, really tight, and you can kind of see how tight it is. And there's a perfect example right there of overspin. So it'll be really, really tight, and if you were to pull that apart, it would be like a band snapping. This is what you do not want to happen. So I'm going to, with the electric spinner wheel, I'm going to go back to my Z twist and kind of unspin that a little bit so I don't have overspin in my fiber. So I'm just like I stated, you do not want the overspin in your yarn, but you also do not want your strand of yarn here that is setting the twist, you do not want it to work into your roving. If it starts working into your roving, you are going to be tugging a lot to the point where you might just need to break it off and reattach your fiber. So I am still doing a short draft. Now I will kind of show you how to do a long draft. So to do a long draft, it's very, very similar to the short draft, but we're just going to create pretty much a long strand of yarn, let it twist, and then once you've got your twist, you will feed it into the orifice and then continue that process again. once you have spun up a little bit, you do want to move your yarn around on your bobbin so that you're not creating a big old mound of yarn. And this will actually help you get a little bit more yarn onto that bobbin. Now, if you are having issues with your yarn not wanting to uptake, meaning that it's not wanting to fill the bobbin and it's just sitting there spinning and you can kind of feel it because it's very, very loose, there could be a few issues here. One being your tension might be a little too loose, so you might need to adjust your tension to a little bit tighter. You don't want to go too tight to where it is uptaking fully out of your control and you're doing nothing but splitting your yarn from your fiber. But it could also, especially with these nanos, be that the bobbin might not be sitting 100% correctly onto the flywheel. Or it could also be like with these 3D printed bobbins, it could also be that the bobbin isn't fully put together. So those are a few problems if you are having issues uptaking. If it is uptaking or not wanting to uptake, but if you are having issues with it uptaking too quickly, then like I said, one of the issues could be that your tension is too tight, so you might need to pull back a little bit on your tension. But it could also be your speed as well, so you might need to slack off on your speed and go at a little bit slower pace. So I hope this video kind of helped you in some way. If you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to either ask me down in the comment section or even email me. I know I did not cover everything in today's video. There is a lot to learn about spinning, and a lot of it is a trial and error, so it is going to take some time for you to get the feeling and get the overall beat of spinning. So just kind of practice, go at your own speed, figure out different things, work with your spinning wheel, and figure out whether you like a short draw or a long draw. I personally like the short draw, but I'm going to go ahead and continue spinning my fiber. I do want to thank you for tuning in today. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or concern, feel free to email me. But in the next video, we will actually learn how to ply our singles together.